When we first started homeschooling, the question I always dreaded was, where do your kids go to school? Why? Because that question always led to two more questions. One, are you qualified to be a teacher? And then secondly, how are they going to socialize? So today's video, I want to completely crush this myth about homeschooling and socialization. This video is special for anybody just starting out in the homeschooling world, but also for anyone interested in embarking on this journey. My name is Erica and I am a homeschooling mom of 3 kids, and I've been doing this for 8 years. My kids are 10, 8, and 3. Today I decided to step out of the house. I was more forced because this one has baseball practice. But anyway, I'm at one of our local parks where on several occasions I've gotten this question about socialization. And this is one of the many parks we frequent, but in general, parks and playgrounds represent the heart and soul of our very beginnings of homeschooling and socializing. Since was 2 years old, and yes, I'm blessed to live in sunny Florida where I can be in a park year-round. Our lives have centered around park activities, from starting off as toddlers to now doing organized sports. We've been surrounded by kids constantly. Who out there has gotten the question, but how will they socialize? This was my greatest fear when starting out. Why? Because from friends to family, that was often the first question. Back then, I was less confident, and I allowed these questions to get in my head and create doubt. I can say now, those friends and family no longer ask that question because they see how well socialized my kids are. And if somebody new asks the question, I just have a little snide remark that I just say, well, they're overly socialized. Contrary to popular belief, homeschoolers are not isolated hermits who never see the light of day and just live in the backwoods. Here's a whole new world of homeschoolers that include urban, modern, liberally minded, and even a growing population of secular families. We live far from secluded lives, and there are plenty of opportunities for our kids to socialize and interact with their peers. I think the first thing we need to do is define what is socialization. Drop me in the comments below, what is your vision of socialization when it comes to your child? Also, let me know what other topics you'd love to hear about, even if it's unrelated to homeschool, because my mission here is to build a community around topics related to motherhood, women, and homeschooling as well. Let's get back to defining socialization. By definition, and this comes from the Oxford Language Dictionary, socialization is 1, the activity of mixing socially with others, and 2, the process of learning to behave in a way that's acceptable to society. Let's let that marinate for a moment. Ultimately, your vision is going to address the question of homeschooling and socialization. So I have to say, what are your expectations? Most folks will say they want their kids to learn how to function effectively in a group setting, develop respect for others, and possess the ability to establish positive relationships with people of all ages, genders, races, and social economic backgrounds. If we look at it from this perspective, I venture to say that neither homeschooling or traditional schools can solely provide these skills. Instead, they depend on your parenting approach and the social circles in which your child is involved. In a moment, I will get into some activities you can do that facilitate the socialization process. We are back in the house in the air condition because out there it's like a hot tamale. It has to be over 100 degrees. Let's dive into some statistics that prove homeschoolers are rocking the socialization game. Out of nearly 100 studies, most homeschoolers do not suffer in comparison with conventionally schooled counterparts across a range of social skills. 71% of homeschoolers participated in ongoing community service activities compared to 37% of the general population. 98% of homeschoolers are involved in more than 2 activities outside their home, and the average number of activities they are engaged in is around 5.2. How can homeschoolers make the most of social opportunities? Let's dive into some practical tips. If you're starting at a young age, mommy and me classes are gonna work. Gymnastics, art studios, library story time. Your next option is to consider homeschool co-ops. Then you have community groups. Think Boy Scouts or the Girl Scouts. So consider organizing field trips and doing play dates with neighbors. And if you're starting from an older age, you can make an effort to keep your kids in touch with their old schoolmates. My favorite is athletics, especially team sports. And there's a lot of dynamics that they learn to build through those team sport activities. Also, consider enrichment classes at your local public school. Check your homeschool laws in your state. Florida homeschoolers are actually allowed to participate in enrichment activities at our local public school. We've actually attended some phenomenal after-school enrichment classes like Lego engineering, and this fall we are signed up for a fashion graphic design class. If you have a chance, go for it, because it gives your family a chance to still feel part of your community. You also have to consider enrichment classes just at your local community center, like the library, your park district, your YMCA, or JCC. The last two are volunteer work and apprentices. Especially as they get older, volunteer work and apprenticeships are a fantastic way to gain knowledge while socializing with others who share a similar passion. For example, at the age of 9, my son assisted our local baseball league for their toddler class. Not only did it give him a chance to give back to the community, but it allowed him to explore leadership and teaching skills as he helped out the little guys. To give an example of what we've done over the years, we have done taekwondo, swim, tennis, piano, guitar, soccer, baseball, breakdancing, sailing, Lego classes, story time. I think the list goes on, but it's just an example of all the things that you can do with your kids. Just because you homeschool doesn't mean you are limited to other homeschool families. When we started, I didn't even know any other homeschoolers in my area, and even though we know some now, they're not our close friends. Not on purpose. It just happens that my kids, their closest friends, are regular school kids. Opportunities greatly depend on where you live. We live in an urban, well-populated area, so socializing has been easy breezy. We've always felt a part of our community, and with our active involvement in the neighborhood, for a while, people didn't even know that we were homeschoolers. For those of y'all listening and saying, girl, I live in the country, we don't have all that. Listen, I understand. I realize that homeschooling in a rural area can be more difficult than in a suburban or urban area where there's tons of activities. If you're living in a rural area, then you may have to get more creative about finding stuff outside of your home, but it can be done. Consider traveling to larger cities, or just consider starting your own co-op or support group. Homeschooling often requires some initiative and creativity. In small towns, this is where volunteering and apprenticeships may become really great options for you. Let's talk about the high school years. I got some time before I get there, but I can imagine that may present a social challenge, especially if your group that you hang out with are predominantly homeschoolers and that a lot of those kids have decided to take on the high school experience. If you already have a group of friends that are in traditional school, this may not present as much of a problem. You got two options. First of all, once they hit 16, they are able to do community college classes. So that will become their social network. Also, if they are in team sports, that will be a way that they continue socializing. The apprenticeships, the volunteer work, that's all social activities. Let's talk about some of those milestones. Prom, graduation. If you have friends that are in traditional school, they can be invited as guests. The other option that you have that I've seen is that many co-ops and homeschool organizations actually have started organizing their own official proms and graduations. And that way your child does not have to miss out on those special high school moments. There you have it, supermamas. I hope that I have busted this whole socialization myth. Unless you are living in a cave with no access to society, your children in the end will have equivalent, if not possibly higher social skills of any other child, as long as you put the effort into it. Ultimately, socialization, like many other aspects of homeschooling and traditional school, is dependent on the child and the influence of their environment. Sure. Embrace the freedom to socialize in creative and meaningful ways, and embrace the diversity of experiences. Watch your child thrive. If you stayed with me this long, please hit that subscribe button so you do not miss my next video, and drop a comment below with ideas of topics that you'd like to hear about, even if it's outside of the homeschool world. Go forth and conquer, supermamas. See you next time.